Hey guys, what's up and welcome to the channel. I'm the Shotgun Shogun, and this is another episode of the Shotgun Shogun September Showdown super special bracket announcement number 3. I am joined by Arkden from Level Up Together. I have
Hello?
been actually enjoying bringing in other people from the community to talk about some of these picks, because these are some huge picks, massive players in the community. I know that out of our contestants, actually, there were a handful that were in the original Level Up Cup. That was that's awesome. So I know that you do know a handful of these people. Some of them a little bit unknown. We were actually talking about that before we started up, that some of these players, resident sleepers, people don't know exactly what they're going to bring to the table because they're not typically tournament players. They're not people who stream. They're not super well known. They're people like the first person, Amp from Eden of Gaming, who opted to just really climb at the very end of the season. Ran all the way up to rank 44. Now, I know Amp from a few other things, Discords, things like that. So really wasn't a surprise to me. Very, very solid player. Favorite go-to pick is Vivian. I actually really tilted him when I was in the second anniversary tournament, and I didn't pick Vivian, even though Vivian would have won a handful of those games, after which point he was mad at me for a little while, but that was perfectly fine. He says he's most known for forcing Gunther drafts, and I don't know if that means forcing the other person to draft Gunther, or if they let him for draft Gunther. Could be either way.
When I read that, I'm assuming that he's saying, no, I'm gonna make Gunther work, deal with it. That's how I read it, is like, I'm gonna force Gunther into my draft and it's gonna work, don't worry.
Well, actually, Gunther has been putting in work at High Legend. You build him very speed bruiser with a massive amount of attack and slap Uberius Tooth.
Yeah.
And he just dumpsters things. I remember I had one hit me so hard that it disconnected my internet. I was just immediately, my Rylet was sent to the Shadow Realm, and there was not much else I could do. I was just like, oh. And the thing is when you see Gunther come through, a lot of times I just want to see how much damage this can do. I don't even care about the loss. I just want to see what this can hit me for. But he does primarily play speed bruisers, which I think is actually something we'll probably see quite a bit. A lot of the meta, especially a High Legend, right? Speed bruisers, because...
Can you explain speed bruisers to me for a second? Because I know that, like, I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier, like, that difference between, I feel like you're used to seeing either those tanky and bruiser and stall comps, or those cleavy control comps. Those are kind of like, because you can kind of switch off to those relatively easily.
Yeah.
Can you explain speed bruiser? What is speed bruiser?
Yeah, so speed bruiser is your higher DPS characters, right? Take like Rylet, for example. Rylet, perfect example of speed bruiser meta, right? Because you want to build him like 220, 230 speed. But you also want that heft. You want the 13, 14k hit points. You want the 12 to 1300 defense. But at the same time, you're also doing decent damage. You're doing that bruiser damage. So whereas like an Alencia, or like maybe a slower high damage a Tywin is the more tanky bruiser, speed bruiser is the more... think of it this way. Speed bruiser is a leather wearing monk, whereas tanky bruiser is a chainmail wearing Viking person.
Okay.
So you're a little slower, a little tankier, whereas like the speed bruisers, a little bit higher, a little bit more damage, but without being a glass cannon.
Would you describe speed bruisers then as been a thing that has now started because of things like Rylet, and that's why we're seeing these Tempest Surins and these other things that are sort of these like speedy bruisers? Like, I assume that falls into the same category, right? Like, they're usually gonna pick...
Yeah, kind of. I mean, T-Surin a little bit different than Speed Bruiser, just because T-Surin is weird with her passive, right? But yeah, you definitely see a bit more of that.
It's her bruiserness from other things.
Right. You know,
Yeah.
and you also have players who, and Speed Bruiser kind of was a thing. It just didn't have a name. It was more of an aggressive bruiser style, aggressive tanky
Okay.
bruiser. But as things evolve, you get a little bit more speed going on. I know we started talking about amp and then just sidetracked into so that everybody knows what speed bruiser is. But that would be a little bit of that. So you're a little bit less tanky, a little bit more speedy. You revolve around cycling turns, getting that damage in. But speaking of another Speed Bruiser player, we have X Weeb King, and I think most people know X Weeb King as X Chair King or as Sky King.
Yeah.
Global in the Onaha Guild Ohana.
I think it's
Yeah.
Dalhana. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
he was in champion last season, but Gabe's a pretty good player when Gabe wants to be. Sometimes Gabe will sprint and int, but I have fought Gabe quite a few times, Sky King, and always good fights. Always good fights. His favorite go-to pick is Ruel. Not really a huge surprise. He's most known for Mighty Mouse trolling, which actually is one of the ways that I found him with his 2-star mouse. This was at the point where I was running a lot of my 2-star Danger Doggo, and I think we were on the live stream pitching characters for RTA upcoming, and I challenged him to a 1v1 with my Danger Doggo versus his mouse, but he definitely punked out because we haven't had that fight because he knows that the Danger
Doesn't
Doggo
that,
is
you have
way too
elemental
strong.
advantage on that one?
I do actually, and evasion.
Elemental.
Yeah, so it would be a little bit rough, but another Speed Bruiser player. So
Yeah.
I know he picks. I know he picks Rylet. I know he picks. I believe he picks SSB. Usually one support, 2 tanks, and then your speedy bruiser. He's also known though for having high speed gear. I do know that I have heard. I haven't gotten to see it personally, but I know that I've heard New talk about on stream before that if need be, Sky King can speed contest, but he typically just goes for the bruiser setup. It's a little bit more safe, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's at least from what I've seen too, at least if you're not rocking like crazy speed gear, why not just diversify that into other characters that can maybe deal with the initial speed check and then be able to survive into round 2. I think it's smart. Makes a lot of sense to me. That's kind of what I'm having to do too, because I found out recently that the fastest character I can make is 265. Was a little sad for a second there, but then I realized like, that's why there's other stuff in this meta that can be played. So no, that's super good. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Moved on to our next player, actually Tofu. I don't know if they're actually Tofu, but I would assume that they are Tofu because on the internet anything is possible.
Right.
Global server from Deviants, rank legend 70-ish, they say. Go-to pick is another Vivian. Now, I feel like up until maybe not recently, right? But I do feel like Vivian is getting a lot more play, especially after her exclusive equipment that gave her that CR push. She's a lot easier to toilet bowl people with. Most known for DPS drafts and primary playstyle, go hard or go home. Full DPS mostly. Now, with a Vivian pick, that's a little bit surprising if they're full DPS because Vivian's usually around 240, give or take. You can S3, and as long as the other team isn't super fast, you can sometimes make it back around. But usually when you see somebody talk about full DPS or go hard, go fast, it's cleave. I don't know too many people that cleave with Vivian. I don't think that it's impossible, but could be some sort of, maybe potential bruiser cleave. This Rose CR push into a Vivian, or maybe you have it timed so that somebody CR pushes the Vivian afterwards, do a little bit of chip damage, and then toilet bowl things. But I personally like high DPS matches because they're done quick.
No, I agree. It's funny. We were talking about, and I wish I could remember the conversation because it's been so long and I hadn't seen almost anybody do it. But I remember when the EEs came out, there was a conversation that I had, I think it was with Callie, that he had said like, man, it'd be really cool if you picked this particular EE with her, because then you could pretty easily actually like use her as a cleaver, but she would
Oh
have to
yeah.
be built pretty darn fast. And of course, we all know like the faster you build them, unless your gear can kind of match that speed, a lot of times the faster you go doesn't necessarily mean the most the best cleaver you're going to be at that point too. So yeah, that is interesting seeing that come around, because I think you're right in saying that. I would say most people do build that 230, 240. That's usually what I'm seeing too.
Yeah.
And I'm usually only in champion most of the time too. So if that is that what you usually see in legend as well?
I've seen some a little bit faster, but yeah, usually it's like 240 is around like the sweet spot, because then you can also build enough DPS to, Soulburn Toilet Bowl, a Spec Tenny, or, an SSB that's taken some chip damage or something along those lines. But yeah, you're right. Is the faster you go, the less DPS that you have. So it could be potentially like a Vivian into like a CR pusher. I have seen some of those setups, because then that almost guarantees that you're going to just S3 and then immediately go next. The problem with Vivian, though, countered by like Alencia, Falconeer Quarry, who are very super prominent in the meta. Not only that, but the upcoming... Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, Falconeer Quarry, easily one of the best units right now. Most picked, actually, in the Champions Cup. But Tofu is going up against somebody who... I mean, I think anybody who streams Epic7 on Twitch knows this person. It's Careless. Careless is in every stream at all times. And the moment that you say his name at least twice, he will just appear. It just happens. Careless is in Mori, rebranded Trap House, legend ranked top 50. Now, Careless is also one of those players we were talking about earlier that just took at the end of the season and just shot to the top. Careless has some ridiculous gear. Doesn't really ever show or tell anybody a lot of his builds, and they're shifting every so often. Not so much. A lot of times he's one of those people who locks his stuff in and then doesn't change it too much, but he has everything built. I'm pretty sure everything has like better gear than most like dolphins or even small whales. Careless, absolutely insane. His favorite picks varies. He's apparently most known for inting hard, which I don't think is necessarily true. And he also is very vague on his primary play styles. But
which, don't you find that interesting? Like when you think about this with Careless, this is why I like that Careless plays his own game, because Careless was also in the Level Up Cup, right?
Yep.
And Careless, very intentionally, he was one of the players that you had said beforehand, that sort of shot up to legend like right at the last second to be like, no, here I am.
Yep.
You're not going to forget that I exist. I am a legend caliber player, and here I come. Wasn't up there fighting through attrition of legend, but literally just like climbed it at the end. I think it's interesting because he's playing a game that a lot of people, as like streamers, like you look at Weep King, will never be able to do something like Careless can do, which is hide picks and hide his ability to be able to kind of be behind even. And I was actually going to give you huge compliments for this, because this is one of the things that you added to this tournament that I think is just so game breaking and game shattering. Is this like, how do I make sure that the players that are coming in, if people don't know who they are, how can I find a way to be able to get them to say the things, to be able to get them to put information out there that is going to be not just usable for other players to have an idea of, but also to like really get other people in the community to get to know them. It's like a twofold piece. And I think it's funny that Careless, when I look down this list, I'm like, Careless is like, I'm not playing your game, baby. I'm literally this much. This is all you're gonna get. And I think that might actually bode well for him. Like as the tournament goes on, I mean, who knows if as tournaments continue to move forward, if that'll become like a rule where people do have to disclose a little bit of that kind of information. But knowing that he can play that game, I think it's actually kind of a smart call. He's doing a really
for sure. And the thing too, though, is with things like this and hosting multiple tournaments as things go, these players are going to be known for certain things. Not only that, it's interesting because at least from all the tournaments that I've seen, the last one, sometimes people will pull out just very random stuff out of their kit, like things that they would not pull out on the daily ladder, right? You know, that weird go-to pocket pick, because if you do that, you then disrupt your enemy because they're like, oh, well, this guy plays Speed Bruiser. All of a sudden you're like, oh, here's Cleave. You know, maybe you've been working on Cleave, and now all of a sudden you're in the driver's seat and they're on the back foot. The thing with Careless, though, and the reason why he says it varies, is because I've seen him do this, right? Because I actually was did some some private rooms fighting him, because I know his gear level when I was testing some stuff. He can switch a draft in the middle of the draft. Like, he is such a good, well-versed player that he can make it look like he's going Bruiser and then immediately switch to Cleave, like literally mid-draft, and it works too, because he just has so much stuff in his kit. And that, I think, is one of the most amazing things, is just being able to go, oh, okay, we're doing this, and then just immediately shift gears.
That's super good. I don't think a lot of people can do that, because we're only in season 2, right? And season 2, even for your whaliest of whales, right? Like, you still don't have everything geared yet. You're still in the process of 90ing at least some of your gear. Now, are you struggling? No, not if you're at like that top level whale level. No, probably not struggling. But do you have everything? Do you have the ability to be able to turn on a dime and make that happen? Go like, oh, I can't go this route. I have to swap. It's interesting to see. It's like when you say that about Careless, it's like he can make the swap. And he also has enough things geared enough that he's like, and I can confidently make that swap and know that I'm not screwing myself over. And I don't have to change out all the gear on all my characters every single week to be able to do it. But if he's doing that on the back end too, like, can you just imagine? There's so many mind games that can be played in this game already, but to be able to change gear, so you're having to now think about what that looks like to have to when you jump into this new tournament, you're like, oh crap, did I put a this on a this? There's no time for that. It's instantaneous thinking. So he has to know that. Then he has to know how to pick ban, and then he has to know how to go like, okay, now how do I take this and use this to my advantage? And these are the things that we're going to start seeing. The more tournaments, the more seasons that go on, we're going to see this more and more as players start to really wise up to the idea of like, okay, I had to get the characters first, but now I actually have to get like really good at drafting, because there are ways to be able to counter almost anything. This game is relatively balanced.
Oh yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that's one of the big things that we see with a lot of these like real high tier players, is that they have such a omega level brain when it comes to the drafting. They know the exact unit to pick in response to just about everything else. But moving on to the next one, this is Babbage, representing the Europe server, one of the 30 people that actually play on the Europe server. I make jokes about how many people play on the Europe server. That's why Deity plays over there, so he can play in easy mode. But from Necophilia, which is a hilarious name. They have a US branch. And I remember that we went up against them one time, and I just could not stop laughing at the guild name. But legend rank 43. Go-to pick is Litica. I don't know if this is Flitica or Fire Litica. I actually hope that it's Fire Litica, just because she's amazing, and I want to see more representation for her. Primary playstyle is mainly uses bruisers, but sometimes switches to bruiser cleave or CC. Now, what we were talking about earlier with like the bruiser CC, because Babbage can play bruisers, can play bruiser cleave, he can also potentially work in that bruiser CC as well. The A Tywins, bruiser Dizzy, units like that are really going to shut things down. Bruiser cleave, super strong. And I actually noticed like a lot of people higher up switch more to, if they're gonna cleave, they switch more to a bruiser cleave with like a blue rose, some sort of enabler along those lines, because it is so strong and it is super tanky. I do believe I have actually fought Babbage before in the ladder, not too many times. Comes from the Europe server, so not a ton of information on him. Am looking forward to seeing him play, though. I like seeing other server players, right?
Yeah, no, agreed. Because you're gonna. It's why I don't play during Korean hot times. I mean, like, get slapped so hard that. I agree. It's cool to start seeing this. It'll be interesting to see as time goes on if we start picking up a lot. I know down this list there is somebody that is on like the Asian server as well too. So it'll be interesting to see what that play looks like and how, not just how it stacks up, but like, is it a different style? Like, what are they playing? What is their meta? And are we playing that too? Are we even playing the same game, you know?
Yeah, no, you're right. And when I watched the KR tourney for the anniversary, there were a lot of picks on there that I didn't necessarily expect, right? A lot of people were playing Bryceria, even when people were still calling her Doodoo. I mean, they still call her Doodoo now, but
Sure.
I've seen a lot more Brycerias, and yeah, it will be interesting to see if some of these other servers of individuals will be bringing anything big. But I think this is actually probably the biggest name in the tournament. Now, everybody who knows Wales has probably heard of Nom Nom Bunny. Sky King did a review on Nom's account. Probably one of the most stacked accounts in the entire game. This guy, I'm a whale, and Nom makes me look like I'm free to play. The amount of gear, the amount of units. You were saying earlier, and I wanted to say something when you were like, yeah, at this point, there's probably nobody who has everything geared and everything ready and can switch on a dime. Nom definitely can. Nom absolutely can. Nom is also one of those players who ran to the top near the end of the season, right? Just ran straight up legend rank 6, although I saw the last minutes and I think that he actually dropped to 7 right before, but regardless, top 10 is
not judging. Fine.
Yeah, is super huge regardless.
Still very, very high. 6 and 7 are insane.
Yeah, it might as well have been the same. Go-to pick is Crow, most known for Crow, and most primary playstyle is Condom. Now, that is the tanky stall team that we were talking about earlier and before the video is basically like 3 support, 1 DPS, or 2 tanks, 1 support, 1 tanky bruiser. You are there to go to Frenzy 47. That is what you do. You sit there, you wait it out. Either they just quit because they're so frustrated with you, or you just get to the point where you just one-shot them with Crow. Personally, right. I hate Horse, especially deep into Frenzy, although now we have AoE Horse. So it'll be interesting to see if Nom brings both Crows to the table.
I was thinking about that just yesterday, because now knowing that we have today being the first day where you can actually pull on ML Crow, honestly, dude, I think Crow, if we don't see an ML Crow in this tournament this weekend, I'll be shocked.
We will. I've already talked to a couple of people that are going to be in the tournament this weekend, and they're like, I'm like, bro, if I don't see an ML Crow out of you, I'm going to be very disappointed. And they're like, oh, don't worry.
Don't worry,
I'm in the lab. Yeah, they're in the lab right now.
Because you look at this right now, right? Like that Condom comp, right? Its entire purpose is to just outlast, be incredibly annoying to just not even be able to put damage into you. I'm going to outlast you to a certain frenzy stage and it's just over. Well, this ML Crow may even make that a little faster. And the reality that you're going to constantly be getting hit and it's going to go so many turns. We also know that ML Crow gets more dangerous by the time he's done his 3rd horse as opposed to his 1st horse. It's going to be so disgusting how much damage comes out of something like that. That I'm like, dude, I'm so excited to watch people do it. And I was thinking, Crow, why not? You know what I mean? Like
defense buff and 2 horses. You just get even more horses.
Totally.
I think the other big thing too is that with ML Crow being picked into the tournament this weekend as well, a lot of people are not going to know how to fight him, right? Because a lot of these players that are going to be playing in the tournament most likely aren't practicing on the ladder with him right now. You know, the only people who are really practicing on the ladder with Crow right this second would probably be me, and that would only be because I would be making an episode of The Clappening, and also because I'm not playing in the tournament this weekend. But I absolutely would expect to see just really amazing ML Crows. And if anybody can gear one disgustingly well, it's going to be Nom Nom Bunny.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Kaon 3 is gonna be our next one, and I have fought him in the ladder before. Asia server, guild, Zodiac, rank legend 60. Now I fought Kaon quite a bit actually. Was a name that I instantly recognized from my legend runs and all of my RTA last season. Didn't fight him too much in preseason, but I also didn't play too much in preseason. His favorite go-to pick, and I thought I put an S here, but I guess I didn't. Flitica, Cdom, Cerise, Sid, Acid. Cleave CC. First person out of this bracket that does Cleave and Cleave CC. And I could tell you, most of the time I tell people, once you get to Legend, once you get to High Champ, Cleave does not work. Just don't even bother. Just pack it up. Kaon can Cleave in Legend. His gear, phenomenal. I do believe that if you start to try to tank down on him for AoE, like you roll in a CC, Seaside Bell, stuff like that, he just will instantly switch gears into the single targets like Assassin Sid and Sid, and then just delete you one by one. So if you pick an Elena against Flitica, he's just going to S3, not push anybody up, and then just delete you with the 2 single targets. Really phenomenal player and cleaver. So it'll be pretty interesting to see if we see him pick out that cleave and bring the cleave to it. I definitely, like you said before, Asia server. What is Asia server doing with cleave, right?
Well, and are they? You know what I mean? Like, are they normally cleaving? Because this is the thing, too, with cleave, is the characters that you just said that he goes to as his natural picks. I don't think most cleavers are going like, do I usually cleave with that? Because there's a lot of single target there, like you said. The ability to recognize this is where I make my swap. I see that pick, and this is where I start swapping over to other things. Like, it's not like I feel like cleave gets sort of honed in on as being sort of almost brain dead, and that concept of like cleave or leave, dude, gotta get it done. Like I'm in here, I don't care if I lose, if I win, I win, if I lose, I lose. It's awesome, but like to take that to the next level and go like, okay, yes, I'm gonna cleave you, yes, I have those kinds of units, but I want to also very specifically target. Again, I feel like I'm almost repeating what you're saying because it's exactly that. Now I can snipe you if I have to snipe you. If I can cleave you, I'm gonna cleave you, but I know my win conditions. Like when you've done it that many times to the point where you're a legend rank 60 player as a cleave player specifically, you've done this enough times that you know your win conditions, you know what you've got to get rid of to be able to make it work. And it honestly probably requires less full game thought and allows you to really focus in on like, what are they doing? How do I pinpoint that? And how can I intelligently move my team around that? It's really fun to watch. I love watching cleavers because, well, I don't like sitting through like frenzy nines for every single battle, but like that's so cool. I love that there are cleavers up there and that it exists, that it still does actually work. It's good.
Yeah. And speaking of cleavers, this one is actually surprising to me because I knew Jinx as a cleaver. Every time I fought Jinx, I would get cleaved, and I would always be prepared for it. I'm like, that's one of the reasons why I built Eaton. That's one of the reasons why it was like Shuffles and Jinx were like 2 of the main people that I was like, I have to find a way to counter you because I would just get cleaved all the time. So seeing Jinx, but are we getting bamboozled here? Is this the strategy? Is Jinx like, yeah, Bruiser stall control, that's what I play now, definitely not gonna be cleaving? I actually do think that Jinx does play this now because I do know late last season, and he even says best known for cleave early last season. The problem is like we talked about with cleave, right? You really have to it's hard to cleave up there, and you have to be able to be versatile. You have to be able to go bruiser stall control. You have to be able to cleave if you're going to be doing that, or have those insanely good single targets that you can shift to. But go to pick his crow usually a go-to pick for a bruiser stall control player. Even good in control because of the pushback, because of the horse, things like that. If they do slip out, you can push them back, you can provoke them, what have you. But Jinx, rank 14 legend. I've fought Jinx quite a few times is in guild life. A lot of people were joking about how the tournament is basically fleet versus life, just because we have so many people from both guilds. But I mean, Jinx.
Listen, they
well
love to
known,
do
yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Absolutely. But yeah, no, every time I've ever fought Jinx, it's always been a super sweaty match. Amazing player. I'm super looking forward to it.
He really is. It's so funny. Like, I wanted to make the initial joke because I think I sent him a message afterwards where I took the screenshot because like I have no business fighting Jinx, but for some crazy reason I got into an RTA on the ladder with Jinx once, and I beat him and I took a picture. I was like, oh my gosh, I did it! This is the greatest day of my life. It was like one of those, like, I was cleaving, he was cleaving, I took some of his cleave things, and at the time I think I had to make him like really think about one because I was playing something that was like kind of new at the time with like using a lot of Silverblade Araminta and like Cerise was sort of starting to come into the meta.
Okay, yeah.
So, again, he's a way smarter of a player. Like, please don't hear this. It's like, oh yeah, dude, I'm just so good. I beat him. Not at all. I got lucky. My cleave worked. That was what it was. But I think it's so cool, and this is one of the points that I think gets overlooked a lot. But correct me if I'm wrong here. But when if you were a cleaver before and you switch to bruiser, right? A lot of that gear it's not like I can say, oh, well, I really liked cleaving, but it's not working. So let me just take all of my cleave gear and put it on some bruisers and we'll call it good. Like, it's a very different gearing set. You're putting different stuff on all of those characters, and you're almost not even going to use most of that same gear that you would use on something that was like heavily fast or heavily rated to cleave and then put those on bruisers. It's a very different gear set. So I mean, it's one thing for him to say that he's a bruiser stall control. I would be shocked if he's not given the opportunity and he knows that he can cleave it, that he won't still cleave. I guarantee it, because he's got to have that gear still lying around, and it's got to still be on a lot of characters that still have much potential in that area, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, is so you can shift a lot of the cleave gear and then do mixed sets. So instead of like where you're going for 300 speed, right? You can then take all of those cleave sets, take your high damage slow, mix it in with your high fast. Now you're a bruiser player, right? Because yeah, sure, you might not need the effectiveness that Silverblade Araminta had, but guess who does? A Tywin. So now you have a high speed, high damage, or not high speed, but high speed, high effectiveness, a Tywin for the control, for the bruiser control. So,
so I'm glad I asked then, because that was kind of my biggest thought was like, if a lot of this is going to be gear that he's going to have to get for another one, then what does he do? So you're saying that like, hey, that he's got fast gear, the fastness is there. Now he has to go and look through it and all these 90 pieces. Where else did it roll? Because it obviously rolled heavy into speed. Right. What else does it have for stats? And now let's try and diversify that into these other ones and sort of build almost speedy bruiser like we were talking earlier.
Right. Yep. I mean, and you can even do, the control team, right? So he specifically says that he also does control. So speed control is a really big thing as well. I mean, if you look at Kaz, it's like, you have a fast Silverblade Araminta, you have the Cerise, you have a Mui, you have Flitica, you have like a bunch of other things. So you shift from damage, like high speed damage, to high speed lockdown. But yeah, you can also take a lot of that gear and diversify it out. Like I know personally, like I can build my ML Rin to like, I don't know, 302 or 303 speed, right? The stats aren't amazing overall, but I can then take and slow her down a bit, spread that amazing gear out across a bunch of different people, because I don't cleave, right?
Yeah,
now I have I have one pretty fast character, but I have a whole bunch of moderately fast characters, which fits my play style a little bit better. So it'll be interesting to see, what he does. Maybe we have just been talking about this and we're just going to get super bamboozled, and as soon as he gets that opportunity to cleave, he's just going to be like, and we're done.
I mean, he has the options, right? Like, I mean, it's been a while. He's been a cleaver long enough that like he may have just done a lot of farming and has just replaced a lot of gear. who knows? I mean, this is a big question mark because all I've known him to be has been a cleaver prior to this. So this will be super
Absolutely.
interesting. He's gonna be a wild card to some degree in this tournament.
For sure, and I'm super excited. But that actually ends this bracket. I think that out of this, we talked about Careless. Careless, Dark Horse. I mean, everybody knows Careless. If you are on Twitch in the slightest, very strong player. Sky King, very strong player, but everybody knows what he has. So it'll be tough for
Got
him.
an uphill battle for him, dude. He's the kid that's walking uphill both ways to school. Like
absolutely. Nam though, I think is probably going to be the one to watch, right? Heralded as the greatest account known in the game. So, and I don't know if Nam has actually been in any other tournaments. So yeah, I think that it will be an interesting bracket to watch.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I'm excited, dude. I've got actually, so it's weird because this particular weekend I've got a wedding to go to for this Saturday. This is happening this Saturday, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Saturday and Sunday.
So I am like, I'm pushing everybody from my stream to come to this. I think this is just so exciting, man. Like this, everybody needs to know about this, and so I'm just extremely excited for what the Champions Cup is doing over a lot of other stuff. And I mean this like with all due respect to everybody. I really, really love things that very much get the community involved. I love things where you're asking incredible questions to all of these high tier players, getting a lot of involvement from other streamers and other people that aren't streamers that are just high level players in the community to like have these conversations with. Like this is so growing for this entire thing, man. Like I'm proud of what you're doing, dude. It's awesome. It's so cool to watch this get done. I love it. It's good stuff.
No, absolutely, dude. I am super excited to have this, and I mean, this is just the first of many. And who knows? Maybe a collab in the future between the King Tonys and the Shotgun Shogun Showdowns.
That'd be very fun.
Yeah,
very fun.
No, for sure. But I do want to thank you, Arcane, for coming on. It was super fun. I love hearing the input from other people, right? I mean, I talk to Deity all the time. I know exactly what Deity's going to say about it. So having like you, having Minty, having other people on, absolutely love it. In the future, would love to maybe we'll have a big round table afterwards where we talk about some of the fights and stuff like that.
2021, dude.
Absolutely. But anyways, guys, that is the bracket. That's the third bracket. Fourth bracket will be out sometime before the tournament. I'm running a little bit behind on things, but this because I got so much stuff to do. This tournament is huge. It's crazy. So many things. But make sure you are there. twitchtv.com/TheRealShotgunShogun. It'll be down below. We'll also link to everything Level Up Together down below. They are phenomenal. Go watch them. Super amazing community. Go be a King Tony. Go get your King Tony. Easy. Just easy,
it's
boys. It's just that easy, dude. Just that easy. But anyways, I will catch you guys later.
Yeah,
Take it easy, homies. Peace.
Peace out.
Cracky.